I would love to go ahead and bring our panelists on with me if we can. Hi, everybody. Welcome.
Oh,
So joining me, we have Mark Donovan from Audio-Technica, we have Bradford Ben from Advisist, and we have David Maldo from Let's Do Video. So first of all, I'm going to have you all go around, talk a little bit about yourselves and what you do. Mark, do you want to start?
sure. Mark Donovan, I'm the Director of Commercial Applications for Audio-Technica. And I know that sounds like, what does that mean? But, what I really do is I'm the key interface between the product and the application. So people asking, well, what do I need to do this particular job? How is this particular Audio-Technica product going to work with a QSYS piece or a biamp piece or something like that? And myself and my team, we're the ones that connect all the dots.
Perfect. And David?
Hi, I'm David Maldo. I'm the founder and CEO of Let's Do Video. I cover business communications, collaboration. I am a content creator, and let's see if this works. You can,
Ooh.
I don't know if you can get this. You should, oh, it's reversed. We're reversed, but if it does work, you can find me. This will take you to my YouTube channel, or just go to YouTube and look for Let's Do Video.
Perfect. Amazing. And last but certainly not least, Bradford.
Hello, I'm Bradford Ben. I guess I could say I'm the founder and chief advisist at Advisist Group. I do everything from theme parks to conference rooms to stadiums to everything in between. So looking forward to the good discussion because it's definitely a robust group we have.
Amazing. So I am just going to kind of throw out questions, and whoever wants to take them first is welcome to do so. So when each of you walk into a space, what is the first, or what are the first 2 to 3 things that you look for and look at that tell you what kind of audio approach it's going to need?
Well, I'll jump in there. I mean, first and foremost, I'm always looking at the it's one of the most overlooked things. If you've got a bad acoustic space, if you've got, it's all chrome and marble and glass, then you've got your job cut out for you. And there are just some things that occur, in physics that you just can't get past with any amount of technology. So I always look at that first, is from that vantage point of just the acoustics of the space. And then I think on a very close second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth is what's the application? How are you intending to use the space? What are you ultimately trying to achieve?
The first thing I look at is the size, because generally our microphones only have so much coverage. And just right away, I can tell you if okay, throw a video bar up in the corner, we're good to go. Or okay, hold on, let's do video because audio is hard. Video is easy. I could see if there's a problem with the video right away. Audio, it's like, we're going to have to make some test calls, and we're going to have to bring in some smarter people than me in here if it's a bigger space, because one mic, it just can't cover a bigger space.
So I echo a lot of what Mark said of what's the use of the room. And that's actually the more important question, because as soon as you ask the client, they're going to say, oh, it's just for conference, it's just a weekly team meeting. And then like 3 months later, they're going to come back and go, oh, we want to do a training session. Oh, we want to do this, quarterly call, etc. So I spend a lot of time talking through all the use cases as best I can, coming up with all of them. So that way they can say yes or no. After that, I go into acoustics and the microphone. And some of that also comes in with what type of operator they have, if they have an operator. Is it a large space where there is an AV person, such as at a higher ed facility, that can come in and tweak stuff? Or is it a self-serve conference room? And that's definitely going to drive a lot of the choices. And of course, acoustics are the one thing that we all fight. But I also believe a good microphone can solve a lot of those problems.
Absolutely. Oh, go ahead.
You just got to work out which one. That's the thing, is knowing those things. And you're right on that whole, concept. I'm sure there's a lot of like, IT AV guys from education that are on this. And I mean, no offense by this, but in fact, you can understand this well, is you can do all your research. You're at a university, you figured out how this room's going to work. You get it all figured out. First thing happens is the professor walks in the room, or the CEO walks in the room, who has no idea about audio or video, and says, "Hey, I want to do this," and that was never part of the plan. So, as the integrator or as the consultant, you got to go in trying to guess all the different things that might possibly happen and throw it out there in front of the end user to say, "Well, might this be something you're going to do?" So, yeah.
Absolutely. And okay, so we kind of talked a little bit about the things we noticed, and one of those is how the room is actually being used. And you have to ask like your customer, your client, how it's actually being used. But also, like, other than application type, is there anything that you have to look at first that you find is really important?
For me, one of the big things is it audio only? Is it
Yeah.
video and audio? Is it a collaboration room with smart boards? Because that starts to tie in with a lot of the selection, because it's really easy to say, oh, we're just going to do conference calls. Well, what's a conference call nowadays?
Yeah. Very true. And where do you each find a room that is technically a conference room stops behaving like a simple conference room, and when it starts needing a very, very deliberate audio design?
Now,
As soon as I talk to the client,
it used to be that conference rooms were a conference room, and design rooms were design rooms, and programming spaces were programming spaces. And now every space is a flex space, because no matter what you're working on, someone's working remote. Because it's pandemic was like 30 years ago already. I can't say post-pandemic anymore, but it is the new whatever. Someone's
Yeah.
remote. You have to bring them in. So we have to have hopefully video, but at least some sort of audio everywhere. So everything is a flex space, and every conference room, we have to be ready that at any moment we might push the tables aside and bring in a whiteboard and move in a different team and bring in a different thing. And all. So every space is a flex space now. And every conference room has to be ready to be more than a conference room. Not every, I'm exaggerating, but
A lot.
you know,
Enough.
the standard. Yeah, that's the basic.
I'd say that the fixed use, single use space is definitely becoming more of a rarity. It's becoming the exception, not the rule.
yeah, the only time I really see fixed use spaces anymore is like a CEO or other C-level person having their own private conference room that they
Mm.
use for secure meetings. But David did bring up a good point of you have remote people and local people, and that whole phrase that we all hear, meeting equality, meeting parity, that also drives it a lot more than people think, because it used to be you could put one microphone in and do some beam steering and have it get the primary talker. What happens to all the people that are talking off microphone and having a third conversation? And that kind of changes it a whole bunch.
How does that then change the design and the structure then? Because if instead of designing for one thing, you're designing for just about anything that might happen if it's a flex space, like how do you do that?
Well, I mean, a lot of that's going to come down to the equipment that you choose. I mean, there's a couple different, well, not a couple, there's many different ways to slice that. But this is where you also have to go in when you're talking to your client and your people, and you have to understand, what their expectations are and what that means for price. So like you can put one or several of these beamforming arrays up in a room. You can set presets in and dial them in so that they've got beams or covering different areas or not covering different areas as the case might be. And you can go through all of that, and you can make virtually any of these kind of things happen. But everybody wants that right up until the time they find out how much that costs. Because, any of this extreme flexibility comes at a price.
Absolutely.
I also agree that flexibility is expensive, but there's also some limitations as designers we can put in, such as if you're going to have a multi-use room, just give them 3 handhelds and no beamforming mics, which seems like a step back, but it becomes, if you don't have the talking stick, you don't get to talk.
You know, and actually, that's a good point because you brought that up. You said, you know, when you've got a room where there's a conversation happening here and there's another conversation there, I'm sure we've all been in that meeting on the far end where you've got too many people talking. They're having side conversations. You know, and you know, if you've got a beamforming setup, especially if it's just kind of a generic setup to pick up this large area, the people on the other end of the room are going to have no idea what's going on because they can't localize. You know, when you're in the room, you can kind of ignore that person talking over to the side while you're talking to this person right next to you, but you can't do that on the far side. And it becomes a train wreck on the far side. So you're right. Having that, going back to some of your simple basics, you know, if there's no handheld for that individual, they're not going to get their voice across to the far side, and you're not going to have that problem. So yeah, there is a lot of that too. Sometimes you get to that certain saturation point where you need to go back to the basics.
Back to the basics. Yeah, I like that.
I think some of it is going to be answered by, you know, it's a hard question. You know, how do we make a room that's flexible? And we used to try to make a room that, you know, and it's hard to foresee everything that's going to happen in the room. I remember when I was in college, there was this new building and there was this one room that everyone had to see because the architect was a sound engineer. And he or she designed this room so that when the professor it was the biggest lecture hall in the whole building, hundreds of students. And if the professor is standing in the exact right spot, he or she could just talk like this, and it sounds like he or she is sitting next to you in any seat. And we play in there. We'd say, you go up there and talk. I'm going to try sitting here. But it had to be used in that very specific way. It was the room was designed for that. And now everything has to be flexible. We can't knock down the room and rebuild it between every meeting. And I think the answer, and we've gone 13 minutes without saying it, is AI. It used to be I'd set up a room, and if we have 3 speakers in a panel, me, the director, would set up the camera to have a wide shot and have a narrow shot, and I'd set up my 3 different shots, and I'd set up my microphones. And if you said, okay, now we're going to use the room for a different thing, we'd have one person sitting there. Me as a director would come in and reframe the cameras and redo them. Now AI reframes the cameras. AI can reset the microphones. AI is smart to say, oh, David's walking around. Let's pan the camera back and give him some walking around room. Used to have a human being to do that, and you couldn't have a human being sitting in every single room acting as a director. So how do we make these rooms more flexible? It's not about the room. It's about our camera vendors, our technology vendors, our microphone vendors. They've been throwing all this AI in their stuff. We've been like, yeah, we get it. You're throwing AI. This is why. It's solving that problem.
So I'm going to disagree with you a little bit, David.
Okay.
I think that AI is very good. Auto pan, you look at what Owl did 10 years ago and how much of a game changer that was with auto panning, et cetera. And there's tons of great systems out there. But I also think the other thing is putting boundaries up in the documentation and instructions of this is what the system can do, so that when someone goes, well, I wanted to do this, and I go, it's not on the list. We can add it, but that's a special use case. And that seems
absolutely
a little mean, but it also means that you can start taking a room from a conference room to a meeting room to a lecture hall, but you're not going to do video gaming or esports in there because it's not on your list. And you can do stuff like, here's where the camera goes, here's where the seat is, press the button on the control system.
And you said that sounds a little mean. I don't think that sounds mean. I think that's defining the boundaries. It's defining your bumpers, managing those expectations. And I think that for the most part, when you have somebody who comes into a room that's flexible and you say, okay, here's everything that you can do, let them work within that playground of different things that they can do, and, and, you'll be able to achieve almost anything.
And I
That's
do think there is another thing about setting what the system can and can't do. You'll know when you're done and that you're able to define success and then start the change orders or sell more products.
that's fair. So, what are your approaches to, let's talk about loudspeaker placement and coverage when a room has to serve both speech and full range content? What are kind of your approaches there?
I'll let these-
I'll I'll say that that's a wide open question because you say full range content. Are you
Yeah, like,
talking video reinforcement or are you
yeah,
talking a live band or and that's kind of where it starts to come down and then it's can the display be on any wall or just a specific wall and all those types of things. But usually if it's the I want full range content and I need distributed sound for speech, it starts to become two systems that I meld into one. I have video systems, put some speakers next to the TV, you get the imaging, display, video device, get some imaging, and then you can just put audio overhead to make it an even coverage. And because of the Haas effect and all these other things, it's going to sound full range even with smaller speakers.
And that is the proverbial can of worms when you start opening that up.
yeah,
And my aspect, of course, I'm an input transducer company, not output, so I'm not dealing with these full range speakers. However, how well your microphone is going to be able to isolate a source in that kind of environment is a different story altogether. So, everybody wants these little ceiling arrays, these beamforming ceiling arrays, but when you start bringing sound reinforcement into the game, sound, voice lift, all these kind of things, that changes how that system is designed drastically. And it changes the microphones that you're going to choose significantly. So, yeah, that's a very, very loaded question.
I guess that's fair. I did want to ask if there were any like rules of thumb that you could give people that would help them avoid some of like the mistakes that we were kind of talking about that you can make.
Ugh. Rule of thumb.
Hire me.
There
Right.
you go. There you go.
It,
I'll
it's
hire Dave for video because that's the stuff I don't know about.
Fair
it,
enough. And I'll sell these guys the gear and we're all done.
We're all
So,
Yeah,
set.
audio is really really hard,
Yeah.
and that's why I'm not Let's Do Audio. It's why it's Let's Do. Which side am I on? Let's Do Video. Because when something's wrong on video, I could just see it and fix it. And audio, you kind of assume, I see the levels bouncing in the meter or the mic's working. Oh, but there's huge static on it, or it doesn't sound okay. You don't know, and you can't trust people because people just want to be nice. So you get on a test call and you say, "Hey, how's my audio?" And they go, "Yeah, it's fine." And then you listen to a recording, it's like, no, it's not fine. What do you mean it's fine? I'm going to be on a business call this way. You have to do like a reverse test. The way you think, oh, I set up a room, I'm going to test the room. Okay, let me walk into the room. No, send someone else into the room. That's the way you test it. Send someone else into the room, have them call you because you have to hear the audio and have them walk and don't have them do it the right way. The right way, we like Bradford saying we have to, tell people the boundaries and everything. And you might say, you're supposed to sit in this chair and have your, face this close to the mic. Tell them to do it wrong. Tell them to stand up and walk around, pressure test it. And when it comes to audio, don't assume. And I make this mistake myself. There's videos on my YouTube channel, if you go back far enough, where there's just, I'm not reshooting it. And I didn't
Yeah.
know until it was done because it's audio. So the audio mistake is just there. So the rule of thumb is it's the least fun part of the job, but you have to do a lot of testing. You have to do a lot of test calls.
and I think that I actually just did this count the other day for different purposes, but Audio-Technica, of course, we make microphones for every application from boardroom to studio to live sound to broadcast TV, the Olympics, all these kind of things. We do different microphones. And our catalog of microphones, we have 383 different microphones, right? And we don't have 383 just because we like the number. The reality is they all have different flavors and different applications. They're different tools for the job. So understanding, and to your point exactly, is, when you have somebody who's got that, has got that handheld microphone, and it's like, yeah, everybody knows that you're going to use that handheld microphone like this. This is how you're supposed to use it. But what happens when you get that person in that's using it like an ice cream cone? And now all of a sudden, it sounds like garbage. And you've got to kind of predict those things, and you've got to choose the right mic. I know that this mic is best used directly in front of your mouth, but not everybody knows that because there's 383 different mics.
That mic sounds really good, by the way.
Yeah, wait, no, it was like, bring it back. It sounded good.
Let's go back to this. I mean, and that's the thing too. It's so when anybody ever asks me, they say like, well, what's my best choice of a mic? I'm going to tell you the handheld mic that's right in front of the person's face is going to give you the most natural sound. It's going to be a full sound. It's going to reject all the other garbage out of hand. But then there's that problem we're faced with is you've got to educate the end user, which is in many cases extraordinarily difficult. Some people who do this they do it for a living, they go up and they talk to crowds, they're used to using a microphone. But CEOs, educators, they typically don't know. And so they're not going to hold the microphone like I am now. They're going to use it wrong. They're going to do it wrong. So
I do agree with you, Mark. The thing I would say is sometimes it's the choice of microphone. If you notice, headset mic, because if you give someone a headset mic, once you teach them how to put it on, it stays in front of them and they can still use their hands. Not everyone's comfortable with it, but it's once again the proper microphone for that system. The other thing I was going to point out that's been my secret weapon, I go to a website called My Noise, and they have hundreds of background sounds that I will play as I'm using a microphone in a room to simulate all the other people in the room. And it works great. It's been my secret weapon for...
What's that website called again?
mynoise.net.
My noise.
I've been using this one for 10 years. Before this,
So cool.
I had others, but I've used this to set up ambient noise compensation, to get the mic reduction and gate set right. And that's kind of I can test the room without having 30 people there.
That's very cool.
That's a good tip.
I would love to talk a little bit about DSP, automation, and like David brought up earlier, AI style features and where we see these actually helping to make rooms more forgiving, because a lot of products are saying that they can do that now. And where are they oversold as simply like a fix and a helper?
I mean, AI is key. I mean, it's one of those things. It's more than a buzzword, right? So, and I think there's a lot of DSP manufacturers, microphone manufacturers. So, like a lot of these beamforming arrays, a lot of it has to do with the main focus that I see these days has to do with noise reduction. To getting rid of that background noise and focusing on it. And actually, if you ever mess around with like Teams, their algorithms in there are extraordinarily good at isolating your voice and not picking up things like paper. Now, where it falls down with Teams is that's designed for a near field, that short distance and short time kind of thing. So if you went in a room this size, where I've got this mic up here that's, 8 feet away, it can't handle it. But, a lot of the pro audio manufacturers, they're putting a lot of this AI, these learning algorithms so that they can deal with the noise that's going on in the space, whether it's paper rustling or air handlers or things like that. And that's really, because the name of the game here is to maintain the intelligibility down the line to that far side. To Dave's point, not listening to what it's in the room, but what it's listening to on the other side. That's the name of the game, is getting the best quality sound down the other end of the pipe. So starting with a good quality mic and then having that AI that can manage the things that are out of your control. Like I said, acoustics were one of the first things I look at. Unfortunately, acoustics is one of the things I have the least amount of control over because the interior designers tend to have the last word on that. And if that chrome and glass table is their pride and joy of the room, then it's staying there no matter what you tell them. So, AI is going to be an important part, is an important part, and will continue to be an important part of dealing with those things that we can't change.
And I
You want to
will
go, Brad?
say, to me, I agree with everything you said, except for AI being the new secret weapon. The reason I say that is because I grew up using Dan Dugan's auto mixers that were way before AI and old feedback suppressors and the like. So while I agree AI is the new secret weapon, it doesn't always mean you need an upgrade so much as just picking the right equipment.
And actually, to your point, you are correct there. I may have oversimplified it a little bit. But having the right tools in the toolbox, and like you said, the Dan Dugan type automatic mixers or automatic mixers in general are going to be a key thing to helping get around that problem. Having good filters, whether they're automatic feedback suppression or just good parametric EQ in the system, just and I would say this to anybody who's maybe starting off, you got to learn the basics. You have to learn this is how you EQ something. This is, what the soundscape is. This is where the human voice lives in frequencies. And this is where so you've got to get back to basics. But what AI is going to do is going to help you, deal with some of those things that are, maybe out of your control or not easily dealt with, or perhaps random and intermittent. Because the AI is good at reacting to those, non-steady state kind of noises and things like that. But by no means do I want to say that AI is going to excuse any of us from remembering the basics on what you're going to have to do the audio chain.
I do think AI will help automate it and make it easier for a lot of us. When I first learned what a DSP was, it was just such a sad day for me. I'm like, we're setting up a conference room, we're setting up the video, and we're like, okay, we're going to put a microphone here, here, and here, and microphones cost $150 each, and we're all set up on the audio. And it's like, that's going to sound so bad. If you want the audio to sound good, you have to get a digital signal processor to digitally process your signals. And there has to be mixers, and you need someone who knows how to use this stuff, and equalizers. And, it's like $10,000, $20,000 system that'll go in the rack behind the wall, and everything has to go through that. And all of a sudden the cost goes way up, the complexity goes way up, and you have to tune the room. We're going to tune the room with the digital signaling processing. And someone came in and moved the plant a half an inch to the left, and now it sounds like garbage again. We have to reprogram the entire room. And maybe AI can't do it as good as someone with a good ear, but the fact that AI can do it at all, and the fact that it doesn't have to be so expensive and so manual, and if someone moves the plant, you press a button, and the room goes boop, boop, doop, boop, doop, doop, and it retunes itself without having a human being having to go through the equalizer and all the mixers and stuff. I think it's gonna make things a lot easier for a lot of people.
Well, I think the strength in AI, just like the strength of AI, like in ChatGPT, if you're just you're writing documents, you're writing emails, or some of this kind of iterative type of AI, where it's basically, it's going to get you close to where you need to be, save you time, and then you can say, okay, here's where I am. Let's do the final tweaking and get it going where it needs to be. The key thing there, I think, is saving a lot of time and effort.
I also think AI has a benefit that it might sound like I'm against, but I actually think it's an important one. It lowers the barrier to entry of complexity for people. It stops being scary.
Yes.
I think that's fair. That's super fair. We got a question in from the audience, and I would love to throw that in because I thought it was interesting. So Gary asked, we have several large lecture halls where the table mics get absolutely destroyed as fast as we can replace them, 300 to 400 in each space. The ceilings won't allow for beamforming pendants or ceiling tile devices. How would you guys advise to handle spaces such as these, mics on personal devices?
That's a tough one. It's an age-old one that we've run across here too. I mean, for example, you know, I have here, it's a little hard to see, is a boundary mic that is very typical. And we used to have ones that had tactile switches on them. And what would happen was students would use their pens and they would just jam it. Because if you can count on one thing, that is, students are going to destroy stuff that they can touch. That's just the way it's going to be. And we went to these capacitive type ones, so you can't actually poke at that with a pen. It's not going to hurt it. It might scratch it, but it's not going to hurt it. But at the end of the day, if people are just brutally savage to your gear, you're just going to have to design replacement into the front of it. Because, you know, there are just things, and schools are the greatest example of it. There are just things that it's amazing. The only thing I've ever seen worse was in a government state house where they had gooseneck microphones in there. This was back when I was an installer, and some politician decided they wanted to play with the mic and tied the gooseneck into a knot. There's nothing you can do to prevent that kind of thing from happening and the damage from happening, except for build it into the job, into the maintenance contract to begin with.
100% agree. But having had this problem before, sometimes it's the unique solution that will solve it. I had this problem in a large conference room, not quite 300 seats. Let's go with like 100. But everyone had a little light in front of them so they could read their documents. Would you like to guess where I put the microphones?
You could just put a little lav on that thing.
And it was done. And so that's one of those things where I think sometimes the what else is in the room can become useful.
They can't destroy the mic they can't find.
Yes. Or, you know, I did a large church that had pew back seating. Mm-hmm. What no one knew is there was also microphones in there so that the leader could hear what people were saying in the audience. And so you can look at some camouflage, but some of that is looking outside of what you quote unquote see. You also could just put a shotgun mic at various places and give a TA a parabola mic like he's miking an NFL game.
What I think would be fun, and this would get stolen. You have to buy 5. Like you'd have to account for the theft, and you'd have to account for the damage. So you'd buy 5 of them a semester probably. But you've seen those microphones they put in like in a little Nerf square, a little Nerf football, and you throw it around.
Catchbox.
Yep.
Catchbox. The students would love that. You throw the catchbox around, and then instead of 500 microphones being broken, one catchbox gets broken. Still going to get broken, but it might be too distracting. But I love stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think for that, it just depends on the size of the room. Like maybe for a lecture hall for sure, because when someone raises their hand, it's very easy to just fling a catchbox at them. But like when it's more of like a conference style where there's, I don't know, it could totally work though. I see the vision. Okay, I think we are about out of time. So I'd love if you each could go around, give some final thoughts, and then say where people can contact you after this or your organization. So Mark, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, sure. I guess kind of what to sum things up, you know, there's no one answer for any of these things. I mean, the applications are different, how people are using it, how people are misusing it, as the case might be. And you sometimes you're just going to have to be creative, especially when it comes from microphones. But understanding how that space is going to be used is going to be key to you being able to come up with creative solutions for that. You know, that's and from the contact side, that's something my team deals with all the time. You know, so contacting us, you know, you can visit our website at www.audio-technica.com. There's various ways you can find to contact our applications engineering team. But like I said, it's if you have an idea, you know, like hiding mics in a light or something like that, we've probably got one that you can do that with. So, you know, just got to keep your eyes and ears open.
Perfect. David?
Thanks. Let me bring this back up again. David Maldo at Let's Do Video. You could find my YouTube channel by clicking on this. And a final thought before, you know, enough about me. Audio is so important. I want you to come away from this thinking, okay, we heard some tips and things about spaces and whatever. It's not just, one thing on your checklist. As the founder of Let's Do Video, it's 95% of every video meeting. It is the most important thing. And I know you're thinking, oh yeah, sure, we all heard if the video goes out, we keep talking. If the audio goes out, you got to reschedule that. It's not just that you can't have broken audio, you can't have bad audio. You can't have mediocre audio. You could have mediocre video. Put me 480p, lower my resolution, have me have flickers, give me frame issues. Mediocre video is fine. Mediocre audio is not fine. And it's like the secret enemy, because you think it's fine because you can hear the person. No one's complaining about it. But they've done studies, and over time you get tired. You get a headache. You think, I hate my job. I hate being in these meetings all day. I hate these people. You don't hate the people. You don't hate your job. You're getting a headache because your brain is working overtime to process this mediocre audio. And there was this one study, I wish I had a link to it, but they said they did the same presentation and one person had better audio than the other. They thought the person with better audio was smarter, and the person with better audio made... You're below me, so I'm pointing at you. It's real, and I don't need every IQ point that I could squeeze out, I need to keep. I don't need my audio taking away some of my IQ points. So audio, it is the most important thing. It's worth the time, it's worth the effort, and it doesn't just have to be good, it has to be exceptional.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
I think I felt the earth spin backwards because a video person was hyping audio, but that shows you how important audio is in getting the messages out.
Absolutely.
And for those who want to find me, I'm not on many of the socials because, well, I'm just not. You can find me at advisethis.com, on LinkedIn at Bradford Ben, on Blue Sky at Bradford Ben, and usually hanging out causing problems at various places.
Wonderful. Well, thank you guys all very, very much for being part of the audio symposium. And thank you for lending me your brains for the past 30 or so minutes. I appreciate it.
Thank you. This is fun.
Thanks for having us.
All right. And shout out to Audio-Technica for sponsoring that session. Very important. So we are going to roll a quick video on Audio-Technica, and then I'm going to come back for our last panel of the day.